In today's video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 David Austin roses. Hey everyone, this is Lisa. Welcome to my YouTube channel, In the Garden with Lisa Monique. So, I decided to officially change my channel to In the Garden with Lisa Monique because Lisa Monique Home and Garden was just too hard for me to remember to say. I had started a previous channel maybe a year and a half ago called In the Garden with Lisa Monique, and I'm going to just take that one down. So I am going to use that title because that's the one I keep saying. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about me and my rose garden. Most of my roses are first-year roses, so everything that I talk about is based on how it has performed for me as a first-year rose. All my David Austins were bare root. They were shipped in late March. I had not moved in this house yet. I was actually renting a house. You might even be able to see it right behind me. I was renting that house across the street while they were remodeling our house. So I came over, got 30 large pots, put all the bare roots in a pot. And then when we moved in May, I started putting some of them in the ground in our clay soil. Probably not to the end of May, beginning of June, because they were still working on our yard. So when I started putting things in the soil, I have found that my soil, depending where you are around my house, is extremely different. The front area, which was supposed to be my big rose garden, was very, very, very hard clay. It also was at the bottom of my landscape grade, so it stayed very, very wet. So any rose that I put in the ground there, even if I amended it with really good soil, it would fill up with water, and then that soil would get really saturated, and then it would just sit there because it was almost like it was in a plastic pot, a non-draining plastic pot, because of the clay soil. So I ended up having to dig up all my roses out of the ground, put them back in pots. Some of them died, some of them did well. So a lot of what I'm talking about is, again, just how these roses perform for me. I know for other people, their performance might be completely different. Having said all that, let's go ahead and get started. So my top 5 David Austin roses is purely based on the ones that bring me joy when I see them blooming. So they're not necessarily the most fragrant, they're not necessarily the best for cutting, they're not necessarily the ones that have the best bush, because my roses that are in the second year are a lot bigger and better and bushier than my first year, and they also bloomed were covered in blooms versus some of my first year roses. So these are the ones that when they do bloom, I just get really giddy because I love them. And the first one is going to be David Austin's Wild Eve. Now the interesting thing about Wild Eve is I really haven't seen a whole lot about it. It was never one that a lot of people or a lot of rose lists talked about, like top XYZ, it was never on anybody's list, but I love this rose. I love the peony cupped blooms. It is a large shrub, gets to be about 4 to 5 feet tall. They say spacing is 5 feet. It does have those long octopus canes that are kind of going out. I did put some peony supports around it to support those canes until it gets stronger, a more established bush. So a lot of times the newer roses will grow, the canes will flop closer to the ground. The next year they'll get a little bit stronger and be able to hold themselves up a little bit more. It has a light, well, David Austin calls it a light fruity fragrance. I don't know, I just really like either the tea rose or the fruity fragrances. So it has that light fragrance that I love. I can cut it in sprays. It grows in beautiful cupped sprays. It is pale, very pale pink, fades to white. Right now, I have it growing behind me. You're not really going to be able to see it, but it's growing in my little zinnia bed behind me. And so the zinnias are kind of growing around it. So it's like peeking up amongst my zinnias. And I love it. It bloomed like crazy for me this year. It bloomed all summer long. Again, my second year roses had the blooms that covered the whole bush. This might have only been like 3 individual sprays at a time, but it was really beautiful. I did have it up here against the house, which got shade in the afternoon in a large pot until August, and it was still my favorite there also, but it does get to be a really large shrub. My pot wasn't the largest pot, so I wanted to get it in the ground. It really has performed well for me. It is so beautiful. It just makes me really happy. The second favorite David Austin for me was my Boscobel. That one also bloomed nonstop all summer. And it's interesting because I put in my notes, because somebody else said that, oh, put it in a pot because in the summer it doesn't do well and you can push it to an area that, you know, is not as visible. And maybe, you know, when it gets older, it won't do as well as my other roses. But I loved, again, the cup-shaped peony blooms. Most of the roses that are my favorites have that cupped peony-shaped bloom. It was kind of an apricot pink combined, and has a light fragrance, and they're just really beautiful. Now, I can't say much about how well it did cutting inside. I know I did cut a few, but I really loved it on the bush, so I left most of them on the bush. And again, this is another one that is in a container. It is still in a container. I do have a spot. It's actually going to be behind me in the far corner by the driveway that I am going to plant it probably in the next week or two. And I'm going to get a second one. This one I love so much. I just really want a very full, large area of Boscobel. So from Boscobel on the website, it actually says it is good for cutting. So I might have missed out by not bringing it inside when it was one of my favorites. And then good in containers, lovely fragrance. It is a small shrub, 3 by 3.5 feet, and that's one of the reasons why I want to get 2 of them and put in that front corner area so I can kind of fill it out a little bit better. It says that the fragrance is myrrh. Again, I don't know where I got my notes from. It says 2 flushes, early and late, takes a rest, it drops leaves in the summer. I did not find that. Susceptible to black spot and powdery mildew. It did have some black spot. I would have called it a light black spot. I did not do a major defoliation. Yeah, I'm not sure where I put my notes in, but they definitely are not my experience with my first year in a container. So it is a very good one to put in a container. Oh, some of these have ARS ratings. Boscobel does. ARS is the American Rose Society. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, but you can't give anything below a 6 rating, I believe. And I've not seen a 10 rating. So the Boscobel is a 7.7. I was always told when I joined the Rose Society that, and they have a guide, that anything above a 7 is a good rose for a home gardener. Boscobel 7.7. I wonder what my Windermere is. Let me look at this really quick. Windermere is 7.9. Okay, so my third favorite David Austin rose is Jubilee Celebration. And I'm not even sure why I bought it. I think I wanted, there was another Jubilee, Royal Jubilee, which is a peony shaped, but it wasn't available. Oh my goodness, for a first year rose that has impact, that you can cut, that flowers all summer long, beautiful fragrance, wonderful fragrance, Jubilee Celebration is the rose. It is large, 4.5 inch blooms. My bush was just covered in my container with blooms in August. So for a first year rose, it was one that got fully covered, growing in a container. Amazing cut flower. It's one that I have some roses that don't have fragrance, and so when I'm bringing them in to cut, I always like to stick a fragrant rose or 2 in there, just because when people see it, the first thing they do is they stick their nose in the bouquet to smell them, and I like there to be a fragrance. So it is extremely fragrant, really beautiful, very long-lasting in a vase. Let me just see what it says on the David Austin, or in my notes. It's an 8.0 on the ARS rating. Again, very interesting. It says it can flop and stems. This is somebody else's comments that I put in my notes. Can flop or stems break due to bloom weight. It won't survive a heavy rain. Mine's first year rose. I cut pretty heavily on it, so that really hasn't been a problem for me as far as not surviving, because they're not usually on the bush when it rains anyways, and we really didn't have any rain. Morning. So it is considered an upright medium bush, 4 feet by 4 feet. Doesn't really say good in containers. Oh yes, it does. It is good in pots, has very large blooms. So I might keep mine in the container because it's doing so well. All right, my third favorite David Austin rose. Oh wait, is this my third? No, my fourth is Olivia Rose Austin, and 8.5 on the ARS scale. So the fact that mine's doing so well is not a surprise. Mine is still in a pot. It gets beautiful cupped flowers that grows in sprays. You can just cut one stem and have all those beautiful flowers. Wild Eve is like that too, that you can just cut one stem and have a beautiful spray. It does well in pots, which mine is doing well, full of partial sun. It says it has a light to medium fruity fragrance. Mine has been pretty good, a medium fragrance. It gets to be a fairly large upright shrub, 4.5 feet tall, 3.5 feet wide. It says you can stake it for more support, and it is continuously flowering, which is true. I also did put the little peony cages around in the pot to kind of support the stems. Yeah, this one has been a real performer for me. Every time I need to refresh my flowers inside, I can come back out and I'm going to have a spray of Olivia Rose Austin ready. I have some right now. They're not necessarily in sprays. Maybe I'll cut one and show you it. This is a stem of Olivia. Now, you're not going to be able to see very well, but there was another flush that I cut off. So there was a stem with a flush that cut off. So this is kind of a second flush on a single stem. A lot of the more modern roses, a lot of the David Austins that are bred to bloom in sprays, if you cut back to that fifth leaf, you could cut off a fairly recent second bloom or more consistent bloom in your sprays. So sometimes, so I'll just deadhead it. I'll just pop the head off and kind of leave an ugly looking stem. And then later I will go back, usually when I'm picking some other roses for at the next round, I'll go back and trim those little itty bitty stems so I don't have a bush covered with those little stems. But sometimes the new roses are growing right below it on a one leaf or a no leaf. It's kind of crazy to me, so I do not cut my spray roses back to a fifth leaf until I know that I'm done with that stem. So this one, when I cut it right now, I did cut back to a fifth leaf. You can almost even see where the growth is coming out if you look where the leaf grows from the stem. Sometimes you can see a little bud or the new growth coming out. But a lot of these roses, I wait because they are going to bloom again on a third leaf cluster or one leaf. It's just, you just need to know your roses. So that's just one thing. You might be cutting off blooms on these spray type roses. Yeah, see, I just think it smells really lovely, what I would call a true rose smell or fragrance. Okay, that's Olivia. Love her. Okay, and my fifth favorite is the Sceptered Isle, another beautiful clustered pale pink. These blooms are small, and they're small just because it's the end of the summer. I'm expecting the fall blooms to be bigger. They were bigger in the spring, and that's true with all of my roses. They were blooming all summer long. The blooms were smaller. They were fewer petals. They looked different. If you just saw those blooms, you'd be like, "Oh, is this supposed, really this rose, or did they sell me the wrong one?" And everyone on Facebook would tell you, "Oh, you got the wrong rose." But like most people would say, this is not Boscoville. You got the wrong rose. But I know it is Boscoville. It's just right now the blooms are very real pink. Sceptred Isle, not as full as it will be. It did have a slow period in the summer. It also was transplanted in the summer. It didn't necessarily go through transplant shock, but it was not doing as well in the pots. So I can't say it was. It did have some black spot, but I feel like I had some sort of mite or rose midge or something on it that was really affecting its health. So I did get in the ground. It is starting to take off. Again, super long canes, and I'm looking forward to a really glorious fall flush, because we get a really nice fall flush here in the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Let me just tell you a little bit about what my notes say about Sceptred Isle. Now, let me just tell you something interesting about Sceptred Isle. A local friend of mine who grows roses, and she's a second-year rose grower. She gave away all of her Sceptred Isles. She gave away 2 Sceptred Isles at our last rose meeting as door prizes, because they just weren't performing well for her. I have them at an 8.3 on the scale. Sceptred Isle is a large shrub, 5.5 feet tall, 4 feet wide. Okay, best for flowering, extreme disease resistance. Yeah, so I definitely had some sort of mite or something on it, and it's much healthier right now, doing really well. Okay, so those are my 5 favorite David Austin roses this year. So if you like this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I did pivot from a beauty channel to a gardening channel, so I do need to get lots of gardening lovers as subscribers so that it will continue to push out my content, because the majority of my subscribers did come from the beauty realm. And maybe I should have started a new channel, but I didn't. I just pivoted. So anyways, I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.